But Doug Christie is officially your Sacramento Kings head coach. The interim tag is removed. And just like Scott Perry said last week, we're going to take a few days. We're going to talk to a few people, and we're going to have a decision here relatively soon. We said after Scott Perry's introductory press conference, that did not sound like he was going to have a coaching search. That did not sound like this was going to be a long process. His words made me feel like Doug was the leader in the clubhouse, but there were a couple of guys that he at least wanted to have conversations with. Our gut tells us he had probably been having those conversations since the idea of rejoining the Sacramento Kings first was presented to him. Make a few calls. What do you think about this? What do you think about this? We'll talk more formally when I get the job. I don't know that he held any formal interviews, but I'm going to take Scott Perry at his word is that there were a few people he wanted to talk to. He talked to them and decided Doug was going to be his guy moving forward.
Yeah, and, I know people's antennas are up.
Oh, yeah.
Or they get cynical about these type of things.
Yeah.
And that's something that this organization has earned, to be honest with you. But at the same time, if you talk to Doug Christie and you talk to him about the game of basketball and the approach to basketball, it sounds awfully like what Scott Perry talked about in his introductory press conference. So I can absolutely understand Scott Perry talking with Doug Christie and saying, this is the guy that I want to give an opportunity to lead this team. They seem to be on the same wavelength, once again, about their approach to the game of basketball.
Yeah, he laid the blueprint out for us in his
how they approach building a roster and working in cohesion. That doesn't mean it's going to turn into wins. That doesn't mean it's going to be a great marriage as far as wins and losses, but it is a good start. And I've said a number of different times, just the way Doug Christie approaches the game alone, approaches leading men alone, that's something that's intriguing to a general manager, to an owner, fan like myself or whatever. I want to see what this guy can do with everything at his arsenal. A full coaching staff, full training camp, working in cohesion with the good GM, perceived good GM, and working on that roster. I want to see what Doug Christie has with all those things at his disposal, because I'm betting that he's going to do a really good job. That's how I feel about it.
The questions about Doug Christie getting this, like, just, I guess the concerns is just more so about Vivek, like being a Vivek guy, right?
I think anytime Vivek's name is mentioned, can you use the phrase, people's antennas go up? So Doug has been labeled a Vivek guy because of the Luke. I think it really dates back to the Luke Walton stuff. When Luke Walton was fired and they were looking to make Alvin Gentry the head coach, something was floated out there. I can't remember if it was Woj or Shams Charania about Doug Christie. Most people don't want to take the time to connect the dots. They've immediately said, well, that's a Vivek Ranadive call. He wants Doug Christie to be the head coach. There were reports that Vivek kind of forced Luke to put Doug on that staff. But in reality, all that was a negotiating ploy. Alvin wanted a contract not to be the interim head coach, but to be the head coach. And the Kings said no. And then the two agents or the agent in the Kings front office, started to get testy with the media. And it's like, okay, Alvin wants it. That's great. If Alvin doesn't want the interim job, we'll just give it to Doug. And that's how all of that started. And it was framed as, Doug is seen as this. Doug is seen. No, that was a public negotiation. That's what that was. Alvin wanted something that the Kings were not going to give him. So they used Doug Christie as the guy. Well, we'll make Doug the coach. And then all of a sudden, okay, I'm fine. I'll take my pay raise to be the head coach. And then, we'll see what happens after the season. And we all know what happened.
Well, what about the stuff in the Athletic, though, about, like, this is before Scott Perry even got here, about Monty and the front office kind of being on different sides of whether or not you bring Doug back and all that, like, kind of towards the end.
I don't care what Monty thinks.
Yeah, I wouldn't listen to it.
Well, I'm saying that I'm asking you if like that's kind of the tie-in, like the front office wanted Doug. That's the tie-in right there.
But once again,
you mean the ownership wanted Doug.
Yeah.
And you're not wrong about that. But the assumption, and once again, this ownership has earned that with the stories that we've heard and with just a lack of winning over time. They've earned that doubt that
Mhm.
people have for
Mhm.
their decision making. But just because he may be ownership's guy doesn't mean he's not Scott Perry's guy.
And that's
Mm.
kind of like what I'm trying to get to too. I don't think Scott Perry made this had to make this move against his will. Like I don't think it's like they told him you're gonna hire Doug Christie and that's that. We're already starting off on a bad foot. I don't think like this is that. I think
Right.
Scott Perry's good with this. And, like this is his guy too, like you said.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating and I'm being dramatic for this whole thing, but if Wemby was on this roster and the ownership like Wemby and Scott Perry came in and was like, I like Wemby too. Oh, well, the ownership likes him, so that must be why. No, he actually thinks he's a good basketball player. He could actually think Doug Christie is the right guy for the job. It doesn't have to be just because ownership likes him as well. That is something nefarious going on.
I think it's a
Well,
both
it's-
things can be true type thing. Like, yeah, ownership likes Doug Christie, so does Scott Perry. If anything, you see it as ownership and the GM are aligned on their first thing finally.
But it'll always be nefarious when Vivek Ranadive is involved.
Always.
Like,
Always.
just imagine for a second, Keegan stinks next year. What story do you think out of thin air is going to come back?
That was Vivek's guy.
Especially if the kid comes back in Detroit and is playing the way he was earlier this year. Oh, guys, remember, the front office wanted Jaden Ivey, but Vivek told us to take Keegan Murray. Remember, that was a story that completely died when Keegan started drilling threes at an absurd rate. All of a sudden, it was ha, 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 ha. Y'all thought we should have drafted Jaden Ivey. Ha, 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 ha. No one mentioned the fact that they said that was Vivek's pick. Y'all for an entire draft thing said, oh, the front office loves Jaden Ivey, but that goddamn Vivek Ranadive again wants that Keegan Murray, despite the fact Keegan is the prototypical Monty McNair player.
Yeah, that is out of the Monty textbook.
Right. Kenny's right. The Kings have earned all of the doubt, the eye rolling, and the frustration. A lot of it is unwarranted. A lot of it is make-believe. A lot of it is not real. A lot of it is narrative. A lot of it is just salacious conversation to make people look stupid. And to what you guys were, both things can be true. Vivek may have gone into this saying, Scott, I like Doug. I like what he did for this team. I love what he does for the city. You're hiring the next head coach, but I'd like Doug to be at the top of your list. If you have someone else you want to go with, that's your call. But I'd like for Doug to be at the top of your list. And if someone, blows you away in the interview process or someone says, whatever, you're in charge. But, if you got two candidates, Doug is one of them. And that's how I want this to go. And it's his company. He's allowed to do that. I would do it. If it was my company, that's what I would do.
Securing the Bagley and the Chatty House.
Oh, I'm sure it's something positive.
Would Doug be the first choice if Scott got a job somewhere else? I understand the question. It's kind of irrelevant because this situation is Sacramento situation.
Mm-hmm.
We had Doug go 27 and 24 with a hypothetical team then, I guess.
Right. Like that's there are a couple of different things that go into Doug being the choice here in Sacramento. There are some nostalgic ties. There are some familiarity ties as far as knowing the guy and understanding what he's doing. And then Jesse talked about you had, a trial run, so to speak, to see how he could handle situations in a very chaotic situation. And he was able to keep the team's head above water in that time.
Mm-hmm.
Plus you talk to him. Plus you might not, if you're in New York, you might not ever talk to Doug Christie.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like, so he may be a great choice for a number of different teams, but you might not even talk to him if you're in these other places. He's right here in the building. You get an opportunity to talk to him. You get him getting co-signed by ownership potentially. You talk to him. I like his approach. I like what he's talking about. And even though he's not the first choice, you may look at him if you're Scott Perry and say, this is the right guy for what we're trying to do right here. So that's irrelevant if he would be the first choice.
Well, and it's also like, and I think, I'll spin off of what Securing the Bagley's talking about here a little bit. And like, do you think Taylor Jenkins would have been the right hire for Sacramento? Do you think Taylor Jenkins would have taken an interview with Sacramento? Should Scott have called Michael Malone? Is that what we're talking about? Should we go with Mike Malone? Remember a few years ago, the new hotness was Will Hardy. Yep. I don't know if Will Hardy's a good coach or not. I know what team he's coaching though. Is that your desired pick? Everyone, people absolutely ignore this fact. There were people screaming for Darvin Ham. Poor Darvin is like a bumbling idiot on the internet. The man can't even put his hands in his pockets without being ridiculed.
True.
At some point, Jason Jones is going to crack a Darvin Ham joke. Let's not pretend that Kings fans didn't want Darvin Ham here. It's all unknown with these young guys. Okay, so what? Taylor Jenkins the answer? There's a reason he's not in Memphis anymore, despite the fact he was winning. Michael Malone, that's the answer with this organization. Michael Malone is the answer. No, it's not. There are situations that are unique to franchises. Doug is a unique situation for this franchise and this particular group. And again, his commitment to this team and his commitment to the city are important to this story. But as Casey said, Doug Christie is the Sacramento Kings head coach. Shams reported that the two are finalizing a deal. Normally that means a deal is essentially finalized. Maybe the paperwork just hasn't been signed yet. Also, people might have learned for the first time today that Doug is represented by Clutch Sports. That might not be something people realized as the season progressed. I knew it. I didn't know if that was public or not. I know James actually brought it to my attention. I didn't know Doug was represented by Clutch.
Hey, I learned it late.
And it was
last week of the season.
It was during the De'Aaron stuff that I learned he was represented by Clutch. But a lot of people might have learned that today. And Doug is Scott Perry's guy, and we're off and running, man.
Yeah, man.
We're off and running.
I'm happy for Doug, first and foremost. I think he deserves this opportunity. He has put in work in this league as a player, broadcaster, which, is a way to study the game and to study the league as well. And then as an assistant, on two different staffs, working with these guys on a daily basis. I think he absolutely deserves this opportunity. What we saw when he got the head job in the interim situation last year, being able to do the best he can to keep that team together and keep them above water to a point where they had an opportunity to go into the postseason. I think that goes on his resume as a positive. 27-24, I think was his record as a head coach. He had other coaches, front office personnel, quitting on him left and right.
Yep.
He had a lot to deal with, and he had them in a position where, who knows what happens. They make a couple more shots, get a couple stops in that playing game. Maybe they're energized to play a different type of game, and they win a game or two. I don't put what we saw in that game against Dallas on Doug Christie. That's not him. He was working with what he had. He was trying to get him to the finish line. So I'm happy that he's going to get this opportunity. I think he deserves it. And much like when he got the interim job, I think he's going to do good things. I think Doug Christie is a good coach. I think he is a leader of men. I think he is somebody that understands the game in a productive way, understands players and relationships and the way you communicate with people in a productive way. And I think he's going to do a good job here in Sacramento. I do. I really believe that.
Whether he's Vivek's guy, Scott Perry's guy is one thing, and holding on a conversation. Do you guys think the Kings hired a good coach today?
Yes,
I do too.
And I think like that's ultimately what matters, right? I kind of wonder if the discussion or the concerns is about not having interview processes. Maybe you could find someone better, but who's better that's coming? Michael Malone is not coming to coach this team. I don't think Taylor Jenkins would have been a guy here. I think Doug Christie.
Some guys fit certain organizations.
I think Doug Christie, for what he's done, I think that's a good hire.
Doug fits this organization. Doug fits this city. He fits the goals that this organization wants to attain.
Yes.
And that's a big deal. I'm sure Taylor Jenkins is a fine coach. To me, when a coach like Mike Brown gets fired and you have a situation like you had with the Kings at the beginning of the season, you could feel all right, you could see something's wrong. You can make a change right there. I think when you have a coach like Taylor Jenkins or Michael Malone, who are as far into the season as they are and in the position that they're in, getting fired, to me, that raises way more eyebrows. Like, okay, what was and we have since learned. I think we've learned a lot less about Taylor Jenkins and a lot more about Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. And no one is surprised by the Michael Malone reports that those two made life miserable for everybody. And I'm not absolving Calvin Booth of any of this, but I'm saying like Michael Malone is he's the face of being a hothead. Like we've seen it. And so to me, that type of stuff's like immediately like, there's a whole lot of talk about character this weekend. There's a whole lot of talk about character and how you present yourself and how you need to be humble and how you need to do this and how you need to do that. Okay. Well, if that's true for a 21-year-old kid coming out of college, it sure as hell is true for an NBA coach. Maybe guys like Michael Malone and Taylor Jenkins need to be brought down a notch.
Yeah, is there an age when you have to? It's okay to stop being humble.
Yeah, is there? Yeah, is there an age where you need to stop being grateful for your opportunities? Because again, these are all things that I heard a lot about this weekend. Well, let's take some of them same words and apply them to these guys. You're a Sacramento Kings fan with the turmoil that this franchise is constantly in. You want to bring in the guy who was fired because he just made life miserable on everybody he worked with. That's what we want. Taylor Jenkins was a winning coach. Again, it's a little quieter as to why he was let go at that point of the season he was, but you said you tapped into Memphis that day, and they were like, good riddance. Really? All right. And I always thought Taylor Jenkins was the perfect coach for Memphis because they played like he acted. Mm-hmm. Does that work for this group? And I know everyone says, well, this isn't supposed to be the group. I'm sorry, pal. Right now it is. You can work with these what ifs all you want to. You can have a plan. You can say, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. This is how we're going to. You could do all of that. Someone could get hurt. A new general manager could take over one of the teams you wanted to work with. A million things could happen that keep your plan from working. Right now, this is the group that you have. And you have to think, does the coach I'm hiring work with this group? Can we change this group? One thing we know about Doug, an undeniable fact, dude can adapt to change. Like how much that dude had to deal with this year. He can adapt. And that all weighs in to what we're doing.
100%. I just, you know how I feel sometimes about, like, I do believe, we joke about it or whatever. I do believe coaches matter. But, you know, every coach that's available that people were like, this guy would be great, somebody else has said, I'm done with you.
Mm-hmm.
Or they're completely unproven. They've never been in that position.
Will Hardy.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, and even as good as people believe Will Hardy is, and he seems like a good coach, I don't have any reason to believe he's not.
Mm-hmm.
The hell has Utah been doing?
Right.
And this is where I always come. Don't tell me look at the roster, because the way that you say it is if they're such a great coach.
Or don't tell me to tell the whole story.
Well, you know, I really wish you would tell the whole story, because, I mean, what about when I've been down 3-1? What about that? You know?
Well, I got great news for you, Doc. You're down 3-1 again, buddy. You got a point you want to prove now, as is as good time as any.
Doc's got his next excuse, though. I'll tell you that.
Oh, he sure does.
But yeah, man, like,
so haven't lost with a healthy Dame Lillard. I'll tell you that right now. Dame Lillard, Kendrick Perkins. We don't lose with Kendrick Perkins.
That's not great.
It's true, by the way.
My favorite thing. We haven't lost with our starting five. Kendrick Perkins, Kendrick Perkins in the lineup. And then we go off to trade Kendrick Perkins. Like, oh, okay.
No, Doc,
can't ever dispute it.
Doc is crazy,
That's
though.
True.
No, what did he say? What did he say about the starting lineup?
No, see, that's what Casey does. Like like he calls for the instant replay, like immediately. I'm not going to give you a replay.
Oh man, great stuff, man. Great stuff.
Hardly.
But yeah, man, you need your players. You need guys that believe in what you're doing, and you need a staff as well. And we'll see what he does with all those, like the players and the staff around him.
That's a really important part of all of this. Is Doug took over Mike Brown's staff last year. Those guys were, I'm sure, understandably upset as to the way that the season went. And, Doug was in those situations, and I don't know anything about that inner circle at all. But I know if I was in that situation, I'd be wondering, who can I trust the rest of the way? Those got Jay. I mean, those guys are all professionals. Jay been around this game a long time. But I'm sure for Doug, there's also a certain feeling out process, and there's probably a certain amount of like guarding that he feels like he might have to do, because these are guys who are almost certainly going to be looking for jobs, some during their time with Doug, some this offseason. And Doug has probably had to spend some time last year, probably a decent amount of it, trying to figure out who is really in the best interest of what we're trying to accomplish with this basketball team right now.
And I'll say it.
And I don't imagine that was easy.
I'll say it. I'll be the one to say it. And mind you, I haven't talked to any of the parties involved. I am just a professional tea leaf reader.
Mm-hmm.
And Doug and Luke, there was something going on there. There was something definitely going on. And that was one of your lead assistants.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not saying either party is right or wrong. I'm just telling you they weren't I don't believe, I shouldn't say this as fact. I'm just telling you, I don't believe they were in the best place. You listen to how Doug spoke when Luke was gone or left, and the fact that Luke left in the middle of the season tells you a lot about that relationship and what was going on there. And that's supposed to be like your lead guy, the guy you really lean on. So as well as Jay. So I think tough situation last year, man. Really, really tough situation. And he had these guys, I don't want to say like, because they had the Wizards game. Like, they had some downtimes for sure. But for the most part, I thought he had these guys competing, ready to play, trying for the most part. We also talk about, like, we're going to have it both ways. If a lot of people think Domantas Sabonis is as good as we've talked about for the last couple of years, he had a lot of games where he missed Domas. Domas missed what, like almost 10 games, towards the end of the season. So they didn't have Domas.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah.
They didn't have Domas. Zach LaVine was going through some stuff. It was just a real Malik Monk was gone for the last, I don't know how many games, last 2-3 weeks of the season or something like that. So yeah, I think Doug did the best he could do in that situation. And I think it earned him, in part, that earned him an opportunity for, full-time gig and with training camp, with a free agent, with the GM, that he could be locked in with. Whatever.
Go to get my little energy drink and come back, and Kenny has started a full-on fight in the
chat.
chat.
I was real big on movie directors.
Yeah, they can fight me if they want to. I don't give a damn. I'm right.
This is that Saudi Arabia, what'd they call it? The greatest Royal Rumble. It's like a 50-man, no holds barred, over the top rope battle royal. Because KC said Ryan Coogler is the greatest director ever.
He's the best. He's the greatest. I saw Sinners over the weekend. Just a perfect movie. An absolute perfect movie. And now we're talking 4 for 4. Some people are saying he directed The Equalizer. I wasn't familiar with that. I haven't seen The Equalizer, so I don't know. But
I don't think that's true.
I don't think so either. But I'm going the 4. I thought did 4. He did Fruitvale. He did Black Panther,
which includes Wakanda. Like he did Wakanda Forever.
Yes, and now he's done Sinners. And Sinners is, like I told the guys during the break, there is so much in this movie. It's crazy. Like I said, if you understand some of the historical, the cultural, the religious eggs that are in this movie, then it just blows your mind. Or if you learn about them or you read about whatever the case may be, if you just want to watch a good movie, that's there too.
Oh yeah, we're okay. King's hired up Christie. We might. I mean,
I said it. No disrespect to these people, but keep your Tarantinos. You can have your Tarantinos and your Kill Bills.
I don't like Tarantino.
You can have your Scorseses. I love The Godfather. I love that. You can have your Spielbergs and E.T. and all that. You can have all that.
Stop.
You can have
Martin Scorsese didn't do The Godfather.
Oh, okay.
Stop it.
Who did it?
Stop it. Francis Ford Coppola.
Oh, okay. Well, you can have him too. You can have him. And I love Spike. You can have you Do the Right Things. I love Do the Right Thing, and I love all this. This guy's the GOAT. Okay. He's the best to ever do it. He's the best. Ryan Coogler, Stingers up. He's the greatest of all time.
Ooh.
Now.
I'm looking for. So I got Scorsese, Spielberg, and Spike pulled up. Give me another one.
Tarantino. The people love Tarantino.
Yeah. It's Quentin.
Oh, what's
right?
what's the man that did JFK? In any given
Oliver
Sunday.
Stone.
Oliver Stone.
Okay.
You could have your JFKs in your any given Sundays. No disrespect to these guys, but they ain't him. They not him.
Ooh, man. Okay, this is interesting.
Who did the Batman trilogy, the Dark Knight ones? I'll stick with that guy.
Is it something Nolan?
Christopher Nolan.
Christopher
Shout out Christopher Nolan.
Oh, those are fantastic.
Quentin Tarantino. Who'd you say after Tarantino?
Oliver Stone.
Oliver Stone. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is look for, because what I thought I would try is the first 4 movies of a director's career. It's not close. There's no conversation to be
It's
had.
not close.
It's Coogler. The first 4, it's Coogler. It's not close.
It's Coogler, the Patrick Mahomes of directors.
So that's what we're talking about right there.
Many people are asking.
Good call.
That's what we're talking about right there.
Many people are asking.
That's what we're talking about right there. So instead of looking for the first 4 movies of a director's career, what I'm looking at is a 4-movie stretch. And I'm going to include I want to include 5 because Wakanda Forever it's a movie. It's part of the same franchise. But Oliver Stone,
what movies does Oliver Stone have in his bag?
He's got JFK, Any Given Sunday, Natural Born Killers. I'm gonna say no. There's no. Here's one that I think people will like that I don't care for. Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and the 2 Kill Bills.
Reservoir Dogs is fire.
That's a 5-movie stretch for Quentin Tarantino. Spike,
that's cute. Spike went crazy.
Man.
Spike went crazy. I ain't gonna lie.
But Spike is also for the culture. Spike isn't necessarily for the box office.
What would Spike's 4 be? Do the Right Thing, Jungle Fever.
So the best way to do this, I think, is to eliminate She's Gotta Have It, which is crazy. But the reason you do that is because that will include School Days, Do the Right Thing, Mo Better Blues, Jungle Fever, and that gets Malcolm X into the 5. Malcolm X was his 6th movie.
That's vicious.
Now that's tough.
That's vicious.
That's tough. Spielberg, man. Spielberg is probably the one.
What we got?
You've got Jaws, Close Encounters of the Third Kind, 1941, Raiders of the Lost Ark, and E.T. If you move that down, you can go Raiders of the Lost Ark, E.T., The Twilight Zone, Indiana Jones, and The Color Purple. You go a little further down, you can go Indiana Jones, Always, Hook, Jurassic Park, Schindler's List, and another Jurassic Park.
This is Tom Brady.
He's the one. I'm sorry. It's not all for me, but when you just look at this, he has multiple segments of monster movies.
So you can't beat the numbers. You can't beat the numbers. I'm sorry. And it's a different time.
Man.
Creed is a far better movie than Jaws. And you can't beat the numbers. You can't. It's subjective.
That's Wilt versus Shaq.
It's subjective.
It's a different time.
Creed is better than Jurassic Park. Creed is better than Hook.
What has more impact to this? Jaws has more impact, though. You think?
Yeah, all of these movies have more impact.
Yeah.
Creed is a great movie. Right. Creed is
Jaws is
incredible.
Jaws is its own. Jaws gets brought up outside.
Jaws is a part of cinematic history.
Yeah, you can't.
So is Jurassic Park. So is E.T.
You can't take those things away. I'm telling. Here's the thing. Here's the thing for me that I thought about for 4 movies for Ryan Coogler. He hasn't wasted a scene in 4 movies. If you Watch those
So-
four. There is not a scene wasted.
I hear you. And there's an argument that Fruitvale Station is the best one of all of them. But I think we also recognize, or should recognize, that movies like Fruitvale Station, Creed, Black Panther are going to resonate more with us than, say, a Jurassic Park or an Indiana Jones or some of the, or Hook. It's tough, you know. It's talking about the greatest of artists of all time, right? You're essentially crossing genres here. You're making movies, but you're crossing genres in terms of who these movies talk to.
Right.
I don't know how you compete with Spielberg,
and it's fair.
It's yeah. But I'll say this though. The first 5 movies is undebatable. There is not Scorsese, not Scorsese, Spike might be the closest. No, Quentin Tarantino is the closest.
What was his
but the
first
Quentin Tarantino's first 5 were Reservoir Dogs, Pulp Fiction, Jackie Brown, and the 2 Kill Bill movies. I'm gonna be honest with everybody. I've never seen any one of them. I like have tried to watch in Quentin Tarantino's style of directing. It just doesn't move me. Like they did that movie like 5 years ago. The
Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
That one.
That one's good. I like that one.
And as soon as it was like, oh, it's another Quentin Tarantino movie, I was like, all right.
They're not all my favorites. Like I like Reservoir Dogs is my favorite. Pulp Fiction, everyone loves that one. That one.
Jackie Brown was really good too. I enjoyed Jackie Brown.
Okay,
that was good. He's one.
He's obviously a great director.
He's one of the greats.
But in the conversation, he just doesn't appeal to what I want to sit down and watch. But Ryan Coogler does.
And like I said,
is that his third movie with Michael B. Jordan? Because Michael B. Jordan was Fruitvale Station.
Fruitvale, Creed.
No, they were all of them. They were all of them.
Michael, and I said this too during the break. Michael B. Jordan, that was the performance of his career so far. He was fantastic.
So this is
that movie.
This is Scorsese and De Niro. That's what that is. Scorsese and De Niro have made classics for eternity. That's what this is.
And here's look, I completely understand myself. I think it transcends it, but that's just my opinion. But myself, as a black man, is what I like to think, a cultured black man. Sinners, there is so many stuff. Nick V talking about, I don't know what I'm talking about. That's fine. There is so much in Sinners that I promise you, Nick V has no idea the impact and what it means and how he incorporated into a story, how he incorporated it into damn near a history lesson, a cultural history lesson. It is, and there, and
I'm did in Black Panther too.
Exactly, and I'm not even saying it because I had to be taught. Like I said, my wife, who once again is the smartest person I ever met, we're talking after the movie, and she brings things to light that I didn't even recognize in the movie and wasn't aware of culturally, and how he incorporated it into that movie. It's funny. I was watching some stuff afterwards, and it's perfectly fine. I'm not talking bad about anybody, but it was like Good Morning America, and they were like, wow, Ryan Coogler did a fantastic job. This is such a great vampire movie. And that's if you want to look at it as this is just a vampire movie and it's good, it does that too. There are 25 times more stuff in that movie. When I say there's not a scene wasted and a look at a person not wasted in that movie that doesn't carry weight, I'm telling you. And like I said, it happens in music, right? It happens sometimes with Kendrick, with his performances and the songs. People are like, yo, there's so much here. And some people are like, I just want to dance. Like, I don't want all that. And they're not wrong for feeling that way. Some people may look at this movie and be like, I just want to watch a movie. I don't need all the history lessons. And that's cool too. But it's there. It is 100% there. The religious component to it all. There's so many things going on religiously in that movie that I know. I went to a private school for 8 years and I understand the church and all this. It's just, it's a work of art. It is an absolute work of art. And this is the 4th time in a row he's put together a work of art.
Well, that's great, man. I always say I'm going to get out and see these movies, and I never do.
Now, real quick, what if I told you that Casey said during the break, yeah, I'll just say this during commercial. It's not even for radio.
I got.
All right, Russell Wilson. Does
Russell
Russell Wilson have a team?
He's a New York Giant.
That's right. He is a New York Giant. What is it? Giant.
Oh, that's
Giants for life.
What is
That's
their
what they say? I
hashtag?
don't know. NYG men. I don't know. Jackasses. That's the.
Wow, it wasn't very nice.
That's the.
What did the Giants do to you?
Oh, they're part of what happened. They're part of what happened.
That is the worst situation you could get drafted to, by the way.
The Giants?
Yes.
More than the Jets?
Russ will stink.
Oh.
All right, then you're gonna throw in whoever they're. Jameis, throw him in.
Oh, Jesus.
Then Brian Daboll is
he's
gonna be coaching for his job.
He's gonna throw 7 interceptions in 2 games.
Throw Jackson Dart in there. Next thing you know, Jackson Dart's playing for a new head coach next year.
Daboll, I got irritated with Daboll over the weekend because I think that interview was highlighted a lot, and then they had clips of like last year. I think the draft prospects going through a little interview, and he's got them. Hey, you got to change the ZY receiver to the H receiver, and with this, like, bro, you're not good. You're not good. I wasn't buying you the year that little sorry Giants team won all their bad games and got to the playoffs. Then was it 2 straight years of trash after that?
Yeah.
Oh, you're not good. Who the hell are you?
Well, we're here. Let's just talk about it before we get back to basketball. Trista Crick will be with us at the top of the 2:00 hour. You know, we tapped into the draft on Friday thinking, all right, Shedeur's probably going to go in these first 6 or 7 picks. And when he didn't go to Cleveland the second time, we knew, I think it was New Orleans was right after.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, all right, that's interesting. And then when New Orleans didn't take him, it was like something's up. And, of course, Friday goes by, and he doesn't get drafted. Shedeur winds up getting selected in the 5th round. I believe it was pick 144. Cleveland's second quarterback taken in the draft. And a guy who was graded as first-round talent universally, top 5 talent by many, and no worse than the 3rd best quarterback on the board, winds up going 144. Boomer Esiason was the first person who might have said the quiet part out loud, where, again, I mean, Boomer's a radio show host. You know, you could take this for whatever you want. He said he heard plenty of rumblings that owners went directly to front offices and says, take him off your board. We're not bringing him in here. Take him off your board. No matter where he's at, take him off your board. Those aren't my words. Those aren't report. That's what Boomer Esiason said. That's what he said he heard. Owners got involved and said they don't want Shedeur Sanders on their boards, on their teams. And something we talked about Friday afternoon, before the draft started, before the second round started, sure got a lot louder over the weekend. We came in here on Friday and said it sure feels like the NFL was trying to make a point. And that discourse got really loud Sunday morning. The NFL had a point to make. This is a far cry from Colin Kaepernick. This is not the same thing.
Right.
However, if you widen the scope a little bit, yeah, it's a similar situation. We're putting someone in their place. Whether that someone is Shedeur Sanders, that someone is Deion Sanders, or that someone is the next hotshot NIL quarterback who makes a ton of money in college and thinks that they can dictate what they do in the NFL. Whoever the point was directed at, Shedeur Sanders was used as the catalyst to get that point across.
I absolutely believe that. And you raised the question on Thursday. You asked, do you think they make an example out of him? I said, no, I don't think that'll happen. I think you were right from the jump. And I know there are a lot of people out there. I listen to my guy Bomani Jones talk, and he's completely on the other side.
Mm-hmm.
Like, he's like, you're crazy if you think they colluded for Shedeur. And Bomani's like, he's not a Whitlock, right? Like, he'll when it's time to stand up, he'll stand up. But he's like, this isn't one of those times.
Yep.
Shedeur wasn't that good. There are a number of different reasons why. He makes good points. I just disagree. I completely disagree. You can't tell me that for, we'll say, at least a year, maybe two, I watched Shedeur Sanders play with my own two eyes. I watched the passes he made with my own two eyes. And sit here, and then when it's time for draft time, tell me that some guy named Tyler Show, whoever the guy is from Louisville, Dylan Gabriel, and Jalen Milroe are better quarterbacks than Shedeur Sanders. I've seen him for 24 games now.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't seen these guys for 24 games, so I'll concede to that. But I've seen enough of Dylan Gabriel. I've seen enough of Show. I've seen a lot of Jalen Milroe against my favorite team, Michigan, where it's like, yeah, let him throw. This guy can't beat us. You can't convince me that these guys are more talented, more NFL ready, and have more promise than Shedeur Sanders.
Mm-hmm.
So once I look at it in that scope, now it's like, okay, well, this isn't about football. This isn't about talent. And if you believe that a guy, personality-wise, isn't a good fit for your program, or you don't have to take anybody just because they're talented. I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But him going in the 5th round, that seemed egrestrious.
I mean,
it seemed absolutely egregious.
It was kind of out there in the open what was going on. The Jeff Johnson tweeted, based on his convos around several people, with several people around the league, that he tweeted like different points why Shedeur's not getting taken. Point B was a somewhat humbled Sanders is a more desirable Sanders to some teams. Like he's talking to people around the league for that.
And I'll say another thing too. I'll say another thing real quick about this. What it outlined to me is that you got a lot of individuals in these locker rooms, in these front offices, that just don't know how to deal with a confident black man. I heard things about his chains. I heard things. We talked about it on Friday about how they were trying to they would suggest people cut their hair, to be on the team, be more marketable and all this other stuff. Shedeur came from money, has his own money. It's like, I'm not doing none of that. I'm going to do things the way that I want to do it. Does that mean I'm not a team player? Does that mean I'm not a guy that's coachable? None of that means that, but I'm not going to come in here and conform to what you think a quarterback should be or behave like. And if you can't, here's the other thing about that. You can draft him, get him in your building, and work with him.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have to control him. You don't have to control him from the onset. You think he's talented? Yeah, he's a little rough around the edges here and there, but I believe in him as a teammate. I believe in him as a guy that wants to win and is looking to win. And we'll work with all that other stuff. I'll tell you right now, I don't know Shedeur. I don't know anything about him, like personally. But if I was a general manager or I was an executive, Shedeur, get in here, man. Well, I know how to work with you. I know how to work with you to get the best out of you. And I don't think a lot of those guys in those front offices, in those coaches' room, Brian Daboll, have any clue how to deal with a guy like Shedeur Sanders and get the best out of him and incorporate him into a winning situation. They've got no clue. And they showed that with some of their decisions over the weekend.
I think there are some interesting things out there regarding Shedeur's play is always fascinating because this is where, like, the Colin Kaepernick stuff can really come into play, where people who try to convince you, well, Colin Kaepernick wasn't a good quarterback anymore. All right, pull up the numbers from the year before. He was on one of the worst teams in professional football and tell me he was bad. And you can't. That conversation usually dies there. If Bomani Jones thinks that Shedeur Sanders is trash, that's fine. As long as he said he was trash last year. As long as during all of and I vaguely remember Bomani hating all of the Deion Sanders stuff, just hating everything that Deion was doing and dating back to Jackson State, all of that stuff. Like I recall Bomani being one of those guys who didn't care for any of it, and that's fine. But when you're evaluating a player, if the take is Shedeur's not good, that's fine. And I know Bomani had something about mock drafts and how we're stupid because we read them. That's perfectly fine as well. As long as you keep that same energy in every walk of this. Because what you can't do is when next year rolls around and you're talking about the NFL draft or the number one pick, or you're even talking about the NBA draft this coming offseason, don't reference a Mel Kiper. Don't reference a Sam Vecini. Don't mention any of these guys who study these college players and work their sources around the league to try to come up with what a mock draft might look like. Because you can't in one vein say, well, look how spot on the analysts were with this, and this, and this, and this, when every single one of them had Shedeur graded as a first-round talent. When every single one of them have him graded as no worse than the third quarterback. And there were only a few that had Jackson Dart ahead of him. No worse than the third best quarterback on the board. Don't go citing something else because it fits your argument when you just said all of this stuff is trash. So everybody, and it's fine, Bomani may be right. We're all stupid enough to read these mock drafts. We're all stupid enough to read these mock drafts are one thing. We all know mock drafts that, oh, we're going to move this name here because we want you to read our article next week. And then we're going to have the final mock draft on the Thursday of the draft. Great. That's all fantastic. Where you slot these players isn't relevant. The way you evaluate them is. You don't put a quarterback, you don't put a player in the first round of your draft for clicks. You don't take them out for clicks. You evaluate who they are as a quarterback. Their arm strength doesn't change. Their accuracy doesn't change. All of the little attributes they don't change. So whether you have them going in the first round, the second round, the problem with the NFL is they threw all the money in the pot. And they're like, no. We're not going to make a point just for the primetime rounds. We're going to draw this out. And I said to Kenny yesterday, I wonder if the agreement was, Cleveland, you can have him. Just wait.
It's pretty it's a pretty ironic coincidence that Cleveland gets him.
He winds up in the place everyone expected. Now, again, this is one of those things where if you really believe they colluded, a lot goes into this. There can't be a paper trail. I always joke Mark Davis is going to be the one who screws up the Colin Kaepernick thing.
Come on, Mark.
He's going to be the one who there's going to be some email where Mark Davis is like, hey, are we still doing this? Can I talk to Cap's agent or no? And like, that's the one email that exists and everyone goes down. There's a lot that goes into keeping a player off of being drafted, especially if you think they can help your team. So the whole sentiment is pretty rich, except when you recognize the NFL has done it before. And as we laid out on Thursday and again on Friday, the NFL does not like stars. And the fact that these college athletes now have a bigger profile than they ever have, and you have one of the most high-profile NFL players in history, Deion Sanders is a name and a face that the league will never, ever, ever forget. And they hate it. And he goes to Jackson State and does what he does. He goes to Colorado and does what he does. And now he has a son who has every bit the level of confidence and flamboyance that he has. And they hate it. And they're going to make sure you know that they hate it. It's tough to bury QB1. It is not tough to bury QB4. He has to go into that camp and be better massively better than everyone on that roster. The trickiest part is he has to get the opportunity to be massively better than anyone. So I think he's the fourth quarterback in that quarterback room. Yeah. One of them is gone, and that's Deshaun. So he's got to beat out Kenny Pickett, I think it was the other name, whoever the hell that guy is that they drafted. And
Gabriel.
Fine, if you say so. and that's how he winds up becoming a quarterback in the NFL.
So check this out. This is the thing that also raises my antennas.
You got Joe Flacco in there too, right?
Yeah, Flacco's in there as well.
Yeah, let me just take a pick quick. Joe's
going to be the week 1 starter, though.
Joe Probably. Will turn 41 years old during the season.
You're right.
More or less 4.5 weeks.
More.
No chance.
I think so.
None. Y'all they just act. This league, because of Tom Brady and perhaps LeBron James, have broken these people. Wow. It's why the Pittsburgh Steelers stupid asses are sitting around waiting for that goofball to come play quarterback for them. Y'all have really convinced yourselves that what Tom Brady and LeBron James did is the norm. It is not. Tell me with a straight face, Joe Flacco can quarterback your football team at 40 years old for more than half of a season.
I'm not no play for my team.
Freaking chance.
The Cleveland Browns are. It's the ones who drafted 2 quarterbacks in the same draft.
No way he lasts more than 4 weeks.
Well, the other part of this,
cut this, share it in 4 months. There's no way.
The other part about this is Mel Kiper saying what he said. Well, I talked about on Friday. He said they've shown for 50 years. These people don't know how to evaluate quarterbacks. So forgive me if I'm not. The draft is spoken. Reese Davis the whole time. The draft is spoken. They spoke. There's something there that they didn't evaluate. They don't know what the hell they're talking about. What you just laid out right now is a prime example of that. You think Joe Flacco? You're gonna go to Myles Garrett and you're gonna go to all these other people out there and say this man is giving us the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl? Everybody should be fired. If that's what they're saying, if that's what they're really believing. Joe Flacco, out of every quarterback in the damn world, is the one that gives us the best chance to win a Super. That's why I said these people don't know what the hell they're talking about. They don't know what they're doing. They have no clue what they're doing half the time. If you look at Flacco and Kenny Pickett and Dylan Gabriel, they're saying like, this is great. We win it. Please. So here's the other thing about this situation that just raises my antennas.
In 3 years, Kenny Pickett has thrown for 15 touchdowns and 14 interceptions.
There's no disrespect to him, but this guy's been a certified bum by NFL quarterback standards.
You can't say no disrespect to him and then call him a certified bum.
By NFL quarterback standards. That's what he's been. Not by 7-on-7 at Bartholomew Park.
I standards. Understand. You just can't say no disrespect and then call the man a certified bum.
So here's the other thing. There's two things that I've heard during this whole situation that I just take note of. Number one, the big story right now is that Shedeur Sanders interviews were horrible. We're just terrible. Mm-hmm. Interviewed bad, was cocky, unprepared, all this other stuff. Everything bad about the interviews that you could say. Mm-hmm. Arrogance was the one, right? Because everybody said he needed to be humbled. Arrogance was the one. Arrogance. We saw that pretty much that entire weekend from the Sanders house because they were live streaming. Clips would come out almost immediately with him and Shiloh. I'll ask you, I won't lead the witness. I'll just ask you, at any moment during him going through what he was going through in front of the world, the embarrassment, everything else, did you ever sense a guy that was just arrogant and full of himself?
No.
I didn't either. When he was drafted in the 5th round, see, to me, somebody who's arrogant and full of themselves in that moment, well, it's about time. I'm about to show all these bums. Yeah, y'all messed up. All this other stuff. When he got drafted, what did that man do?
Thank God for the opportunity.
Celebrated, danced, grateful as I don't know what.
Yep.
So something's not adding up to me. If he was just this demon in these interviews, where was that in one of the most trying times of his life? One of the most, for some people would think, embarrassing times in his life. He's flipped that on his head. It wasn't embarrassing at all. He was grateful the entire time. Grateful for the opportunity. Something's not adding up. So, look, I'm not saying they're lying. I'm just saying it's real convenient that was the rap that everybody said, but in a moment of adversity, he showed none of that cockiness and arrogance and all this other stuff. Only humility. Here's the other thing that I'll say too, because I was having a conversation with some people, and they keep making this correlation, and I just don't think they understand what the hell goes on in these situations. They're blaming Dion, and they're saying Dion, he's Shedeur is this privileged kid who played under Dion and all this other stuff. And it's just like the Ball brothers, and LeVar was so bad. First of all, I don't think you guys have been around a lot of successful basketball players who are mentored by their fathers or coached by their fathers, mainly black fathers. Because LeVar and Dion, when them lights are on, when the cameras are in front of them, they ain't gonna tell you the negatives about their son, about who they are, about what they think about them. They are going to build them up to be as great as they possibly can when them cameras on. I've seen a number of different times when cameras were still on, but it wasn't ESPN. LeVar lay into LaMelo. Tell him everything that's bad, not in an abusive way, but just lay into him to give him real talk. And then we talking about Deion Sanders, one of the greatest players to ever play the game, one of the most competitive players to ever play the game with the highest standards in the world. You think he ain't never laid into Shedeur about the things that he does wrong? So this narrative that these fathers, because they celebrate their sons in public, and to the people that look to tear them down every opportunity they get, won't do the same in public, thinking that they don't do this in private, and when they're working with them and when they've been with them their entire lives, you guys are sadly mistaken. And that's something that people just need to smarten up about, in my opinion.
I mean, I get it if you were there like last year. You really want to throw away a whole year, 2, 3? Man.
Here's the thing about the tank crowd, which I understand the logic.
I understand the idea the other way is not working too. Like, I understand.
I understand all of that. Here's the issue that I have with how people talk about that. They talk about it as it's a certainty that will work.
Sure.
And it is just as much of a crapshoot as like trying to build while still being competitive.
Right.
You talk about tank, you don't know how long you're going to be dealing with that. You have no idea.
Utah. You think Utah is anywhere near turning this thing around? It does not look like it.
Utah, right? Sorry, Jesse. Utah has been bad for 3 years. If they get Cooper or they get Ace Bailey or they get Dylan Harper Jr. this year, I'm conceding you get the guy you've been looking for 3 years. You get him in this draft. We're probably still talking another 3 years before you make the playoffs. Look at Portland, for instance. They got Scoot Henderson. They were bad for 2 years, got Scoot Henderson, Shaedon Sharpe. They still ain't made the playoffs yet. They might make it next year, but look what the West is doing. Like maybe they'll make it next year. So that's just my whole thing is they're like, oh yeah, just tank and you'll be good in 3 years. Maybe.
No. Well, I don't know. Philly tanked and they ended up back to where they already were. It's like you get those picks.
Right.
You could take Jahlil Okafor, you could take Embiid.
They did all that and got back to the exact place they were before they started that process. The exact same place.
And you can, I understand having the assets that would help out as well. You look at a team like Houston, they've done it 3-4 years and look where they're at. They're back in the playoffs. And all
but again, there's a caveat to that though.
Go ahead. Yeah.
It's you have a massive piece to move that is not in you have a massive piece to move that is still coveted around the league. Domas is a big contract. I do, and me and James don't agree on this, and that's perfectly fine. I do not believe Domas is coveted throughout the league. Certainly not the level that James Harden was when he left Houston. You also, you did swaps with Russell Westbrook. Like, you did a lot there to accumulate, draft picks. Houston, Oklahoma City, they're all of the same story with them. You had highly valued assets to help you stockpile picks and all of these different things. And most teams don't have that. It's one of the reasons Milwaukee's next step is so fascinating, because they got one and it's not too late to do something with it. Now you're committing to you're committing to two things. We got some lean years ahead, and this is the most important. We absolutely, unapologetically trust our front office. If you're comfortable with those two things, go ahead. And that's what the Bucks were talking about for the last 2 months. That's what they're going to talk about right now. That's what they're meeting about today. They're going over the pros and cons of trying to make this thing work with Giannis Antetokounmpo. How can we can't trade Dame now? We certainly can't do it this year. Or, do we do the unthinkable? Do we try to take advantage of Giannis's value around the league the way Houston did with James, the way Oklahoma City did in their situation with the Clippers and Paul George? Can we do that? The way the Oklahoma City did with Russell Westbrook. Can we do that? And you got to trust your front office.
You got to trust the front office, and everybody's got to be on the same page. And, DYL brings up a good point. And I'm not saying, like, just because you think this is how it's going to be, but in the chat, he says, look at Charlotte. They haven't had a 40-plus win season in 10 years. They've had 1, 2 for sure. I don't know if I'm missing any, but 2 top 3 picks in that time span with LaMelo and Brandon Miller. And they might have had some more. I don't know. I can't think about it right now. But you could be Charlotte. And just they did a tank, and now they're looking at it like we're asking a question with them. Should they just tank again? Just like reset, trade LaMelo, trade Brandon Miller, or whatever, and just tank from the tank. So that's my only thing. I understand the premise of all of it. Like, I get it. Just I hate when people talk about it as it's an absolute.
No, I hear you.
You know what I mean? Like, this is what's going to work.
It's a strategy.
This is how it works.
It's a strategy, and it might fail. I'm not up for that.
No, I'm not interested in that.
I'm not up for
that.
And
then you could do all of that, and like you could do all this tanking, and it's cool. Like I get it. Once again, I understand it, and be right back where you don't want to be right now with the Kings, and that's just a first round team.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you could do all this tanking be Orlando,
right, and that's what Philadelphia did. Mm-hmm. They did years and years of process to only wind up getting eliminated in the same spot they got before they started the process.
You wanted to ask me the same question you asked the insiders.
Mm-hmm. Nope, the same question the insiders asked me.
Got you. And
I'll ask it I guess I can ask it the same way, and let's provide some context to this.
Okay.
Tim McMahon, our very good friend Tim McMahon, who I don't even think we spoke to when
Dallas. It's my boy though.
He wrote recently that his words, the league was down on Ja Morant. And it's like, oh, okay, that's interesting. Of course, I think it was Howard Beck who first reported, hey, keep your eye on Ja Morant this offseason. There's rumblings about that. That seems to have gained a ton of traction. As obviously a lot has happened. Yeah. Taylor Jenkins gone, Memphis gets eliminated, the whole deal. Ja finds himself in, I don't want to say he found himself in trouble again, but he found himself at the center of something silly. Mm-hmm. And like, okay, maybe there is some validity to this Ja Morant thing. And as you talked about earlier, different conversation, but talking about aprons and, we're seeing what an effect like the salary cap is actually having on the league and their decisions. And, tying Luka Doncic back into this, there's some will have you believe that Luka's next contract was a big part of the decision to move on from him.
Mm-hmm.
So you got that, which is obviously it's intriguing. Ja Morant still a very talented young man, but to bring back an old word from Kenny Caraway, wards. Zion Williamson. What direction are you guys going? Like, what are the New Orleans Pelicans doing? Got a new front office in place. They've got some things to figure out. They were a disaster this year, and you're still dealing with the hope and a prayer of Zion Williamson being available for more of the season than he's not. Mm-hmm. Trae Young. What is Atlanta? Where's Atlanta going? What are they doing? Does Trae want out of Atlanta? Does Atlanta want out of the Trae Young business? LaMelo, Charlotte, they are going nowhere at warp speed. Can they just completely start everything over by trading him, acquiring some draft picks, having some draft capital, maybe some salary cap? Can they figure some things out there? And the insiders asked me to rank. So they're all out on the there will be rumblings that they're all out there on the market. Mm-hmm. Whether they actually are or not, that remains to be seen. But there will certainly be a lot written about them over the course of the next month and a half, headed into the draft, and then, of course, headed into free agency as well. What the insiders asked was, rank those players in terms of which ones you would be the most excited for to be a member of the Sacramento Kings.
You said there's 4 of them, right?
Ja, Zion,
Trae, LaMelo.
Yep.
LaMelo will be one. LaMelo will be one. And
okay, before you go any further, why would LaMelo be one?
Because he has the most. It's tough, but I'll just say it. He has the most upside of the 4. Zion is the one that makes me pause about, like, does he have the most upside or not? But I'll say LaMelo has the most upside of the 4. I think he's the youngest of the 4. And that's somebody talent-wise and position-wise you can build around. Maturity, is he ever going to get it? Those are the red flags. Those are the warts. Those are the things you have to worry about. But if I'll put it to you like this. If he came off a little bit more mature, just a little bit more mature, and he was a little bit more healthier consistently, being no doubt about it, because the game is there. Yeah. He's got everything, and he's a better player than those other 3. So he'd be one for me.
Okay. Sorry. I'm going to ask you to elaborate a little bit further. When you say he has the most upside, what do you mean? Like, what's the most complete version of LaMelo Ball look like?
The most complete version of,
because he's James likes to do this, but he is right, and it's difficult. He's on a bad basketball team. So he's on a really bad basketball team. And he's kind of he has to do everything for them to even be remotely competitive. So he has the ultimate green light in virtually every facet.
Do we think that LaMelo Ball is a 1, like the guy on the team?
I'll say no.
So
because there's different components that you got to factor in when you talk about a number 1, I believe, and he falls short in some of those components.
What about John Trae?
No.
Ja is not.
No, Ja's not.
And Trae is not.
Trae is not. There's other components with him as well. He's a small guy.
So so play along. A healthy Zion Williamson is. Wow. Really?
You know, one of the issues I have with
Really?
So let me ask you this: are we under the premise that there's 30 teams in the league, that there's 30 number ones?
No.
Okay.
Kings don't have one.
That's right. Zion, and here's the level of consistency. He's a one-way player. He's not the worst defensive player in the history of the game, like I think Luka is.
Boy.
But he's not good.
Hey, who is this guy over here? Like, has there been a bigger preacher of defense for a guy who begging for Zach LaVine
and get buckets for 5 years?
The unethical basketball league.
But I've never said any of those guys are number ones. Number ones play on both sides of the floor.
Okay.
And
boy, you asked an interesting question. A follow-up might be, how many number ones in the league are there? Now, we don't have to go through and name them all, but Prize Pick says 9.5.
I'll go more. I'll say 10.
Okay.
I'll say 10. I think
I'm Las Vegas over here if that's the case.
I think I could find 10 number ones.
Okay.
But they're not a lot. In Zion, I say he's not a number one because of that. He's a one-way player. Even if he's healthy, he's a one-way player. He can score, but defensively, he leaves a lot to be desired. And he doesn't really stretch the floor either. Like, he's not a shooter. He doesn't have. It's just brute force with his game. So that's why I don't have him as a number one. LaMelo, I'm trying to think of a player to compare LaMelo to as to what he could be. It's kind of difficult without being disrespectful. I'm not gonna be disrespectful. But LaMelo's, I think he's about 6'5", 6'6", point guard, can shoot it.
LaMelo's 6'5", really?
Yeah.
Wow.
He might even be taller than that.
I don't think I realized that.
Yeah, he's a really tall point guard. And I'll say like this. I think he's a more skilled version, and this isn't disrespectful. This wasn't what I was thinking, but a more skilled version of Tyrese Halliburton.
LaMelo's NBA height is 6'7", by the way.
How tall is Tyrese?
Probably 6. He's probably 6'5". LaMelo's 6'7".
I do not think I realized LaMelo was so tall.
It's all PG.
So LaMelo's the one then.
LaMelo will be one.
Tyrese is 6'5".
Yeah, I think LaMelo is a more skilled version of Tyrese. Now Tyrese understands leadership, understands maybe the point guard position a lot better than LaMelo. So that's where his pluses are in that situation. But just skill wise, LaMelo's the best out of all four of those guys. Even Zion. And I like Trae too. You know, I'm a big Trae Young guy.
Yeah, I'm very surprised. Kyle said Trae, and I think, if I remember, I think Hammer said Trae.
Trae Young has had moments,
which sounds crazy repeating that out loud, that Hammer said Trae, but I think that's what we said.
Trae Young has had big time moments in big time games.
Yep.
And that is, for me, it was between those two. It was between LaMelo and Trae. Trae he's so short though. You know, it brings so many complications on the defensive side of the ball. That I don't know. Like, all things considered, like if I had to choose between the four, I might go with LaMelo because of that. LaMelo's, obviously, everybody knows his shortcomings. You just don't know what you're getting with that kid. You don't know when he's going to grow up. You don't know if he's going to stay healthy. And those are the red flags for
Okay, maybe he left it. Okay, go ahead.
So, on the Insiders, they were reacting to a clip down south that was on yesterday, and the Insiders they've got the platform. They've got the platform, so they're talking about it on the radio. But all afternoon, evening, they were lighting Domas's ass up about that clip and what was in the clip that Sam Amick said. So it wasn't just them. Like they just the guys that I have an opportunity to talk to. But they were lighting him up. Domas is getting lit up in these Kings Twitter streets, right? So
this not trying to be. This is Sam with Dave, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'm listening, and Kyle will be here. He'll explain like what he was saying, but it was essentially to the effect. And Jesse was like, "Yo, if you don't want to be here, like, need to move on, get out of here. Who the hell are you to question anything? And you talk about clarity and all this other stuff." And I reminded them, and so I went back.
I'm so sorry. I feel like this is important. Can you? Do you know what the clip is?
Yes.
Okay. We can say it, or are we trying to avoid?
No.
So Domas, there's what Sam was alluding to is that Domas doesn't like Doug, or might not be the biggest fan of Doug, which is I trust Sam a lot. That one's hard to put together given what we see, but like, I trust Sam, and I trust Sam a lot on this one. But go ahead. Like that was what Sam said yesterday, and that's what.
And he talked about how he wasn't the biggest fan of Mike, obviously, and they practice too much, and and all this other stuff. And then when Doug gets here, we don't practice enough, and I don't like the offense that's going on. All these problems that Domas has, right? So, and I'll get back to that point in a second too. So the clarity thing keeps coming up. Clarity. You ask for clarity. You ask for clarity. And I reminded them, what have I said to you? First of all, my sign is a Cancer about everything being fair. I've talked about that a number of different times and how like I get stuck on that sometimes. And maybe that's a fault. But what have I said to you multiple times about that quote?
Domas didn't say it.
He didn't say it. Now, I'm not.
The quote was not attributed to Domantas Sabonis.
And it wasn't even a quote. It was a part in a story that said sources say da-da-da-da. And I'm not like blind to the fact that if Domas wanted to get that message out there, that he can go through whatever channels he needs to. He could talk to Sam directly. That could have been what happened. Or he could talk to his agent. His agent talked to Sam. He could get the message out there if he wanted to, that's how he felt. So I'm not blind to that. But I always say, like I said, it could be a fault of mine, but I always say, hey, we got to be fair. He did not say that. He did not say that. That's not a quote. That's not what he said. That was something that was mentioned in the story. And then I say, when he was asked what he did say, what we do have him quoted as saying is, I want to be here. I want to make it work. He said, I'm not trying to like diminish it or not have it go towards my point, but he said something to the effect of, I just want to talk and see what the direction is.
That's almost verbatim what he said.
But he said, I want to be here. I want to be in Sacramento. This is where I want to make it work. That's his quote. Then you've got Sam, and much like you, Sam is the best in the business. I always got to be clear. I'm not refuting Sam's work or what he does. But Sam doesn't even report, but kind of says he's heard. This is how he felt about da-da-da-da. We're taking the clarity comment and we're taking what Sam said as gospel when we don't know the origins or where it came from. It could have came directly from Domas to Sam Amick. I'm not dispelling that. I'm not. It could have happened that way. But we don't know. Clarity could have been something that there's a number of different like contexts to that, right? Where it could have been in a private moment. He was saying that. I use the example about us here in a private moment with our coworkers. If we got frustrated, we speak about the frustrations, but that's meant to stay here, right? That's meant to stay here.
Like until we get bored during the 3 o'clock hour and just start telling all our business. But point taken.
But you vent, you say what you got a problem with, and you're trusting that the people around you keep that here. We don't know that that's not what happened with Domas. We don't know that's not how that played out. The clarity comment. We just don't, my whole point is we don't know. Sam Amick, what he has heard and everything, it could have once again came directly from Domas. I'm not dispelling that, but that could be 2-3 people removed. That could be Domas speaking in a moment where he's frustrated. He's speaking about his frustrations, and then Sylvia hears it, and then Sylvia tells Caroche, and then Caroche tells Sam Amick. Well,
These are all real life people. Every single one of them is a true story.
He's like, well, you know what I heard? I heard da-da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And it was never meant to be something that got out. The whole point is we don't know. I'm not saying I know.
Mm-hmm.
I'm giving you both scenarios. It could have been strategic, and he was getting his message out there publicly. Could have been an inside conversation. I don't know. What I do know is what he said. And he's getting lit up for two things that we don't know the context to, like destroyed. And I'm like, that's not fair. That's really my whole point. That's not fair. That's not okay. I got my own qualms with Domas. I got frustrations with him as a player and all this other stuff. I'm not here. I think he might be overpaid, all this other stuff. But that's not fair that he's getting lit up for two things that we don't even know he wanted out there or he even said verbatim.
Sorry, Jesse.
Do we leave it alone then? Because I'm reading the article right now, and it says that sources say that Domas wants to seek clarity, and there's things after that gets attributed.
So no, I think the frustration, at least I'll speak to my own frustration with the clarity remark, is you can, it's fine as a player, an employee, to seek clarity about the direction of the company that you work for. That's perfectly fair. When you are directly responsible for some of the things that your company does and you're falling short, that's where my issue comes into play. We could talk about seeking clarity after that Dallas game. That was my frustration. I have no issue with Domas. I don't have no issue with any player on the Sacramento Kings wanting to know, where are we going? I would expect every player in an exit interview to what's our, do we have an early plan for next year? What are we trying to accomplish? We don't have a head coach. Are we leaning towards Mike? What are we doing here? Or leaning towards Doug, excuse me. I don't have an issue with that. The issue with that particular remark was it came at a time where there were questions about De'Aaron and Domas's relationship. It came at a time where De'Aaron, I think, was already gone by the time that remark came out. And it came at a time where, quite honestly, man, you weren't playing the best. And so your name is attached as a guy who clearly did not like Mike Brown. That you don't have to do a ton of investigative reporting to find that out. That was my issue with the clarity statement. It's hold on, man. Finish this season out. Play to your all-NBA capabilities, and maybe that will provide the entire organization with some clarity. But we get out of that Dallas game, it's if I'm Scott Perry, I want some goddamn clarity too. Clarity, let's start with this. Sir, who the hell are you as a basketball player? Are you that guy Kevon Looney, who I don't even know if he plays professional basketball anymore? Are you the guy whose ass got whipped by him? Are you the guy who Anthony Davis has made a fool out of for the last 5 games now, I think? Is that you? Or are you the guy who beat Anthony Davis 10 times in a row? Are you the guy who's been all NBA twice here in Sacramento? Which one are you? That's if I'm Scott Perry, those are the questions. That's the clarity I'm seeking. We'll come back. I'm still confused as to how Secure and the Bagley got involved in all of this. All right, let's bring in our man Kyle Matson. A eventful start here. Kyle Matson, of course, host of the Insiders, host of the Producers today with Kyle and Jesse Tapia. Kyle, there's quite a bit to talk about with Doug being introduced officially as the Sacramento Kings head coach today. You noted something I was thinking listening to those guys. There was a lot of Scott Perry in that press conference.
A lot of Scott Perry. Scott Perry's
you're going to be so upset. We can't hear you. I think you might be muted, though.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. That's my bad. There we go.
And if you throw your headphones, please do it on camera.
So
please.
I've done a deep dive into the computer hardware and microphone hardware I have here in my little setup. If I'm on my Mac, I think we're good. I think where I run into problems is when I'm on my work issued laptop, which is what I was doing last week, which is atypical. I've never had problems before.
Yep.
And we're back. I'm on my Mac today.
Yeah, stunned to hear you're having issues with the work computer. That just doesn't sound like Odyssey at all.
It's like you want me to do something more than record audio? Goodbye. We're done here.
Can I tell you a quick story? And it ties into Kyle's feelings about Scott Perry and perhaps Doug Christie as well, because Kyle, you have had no issue saying you have some difficulties with the process that the Kings went through to hire Scott Perry and perhaps in turn Doug Christie as well. When this incarnation of this radio station started, and Danny in San Francisco,
oh man, we got
came
we
to me
and say goodbye to him.
And
he's
said,
still with us, just in case anybody. He's still with us.
Very much alive. We didn't know what we were looking for here, and there was I want to find a guy to do the show with you. I want to find someone, not a guy. I want to find someone to do the show with you, but we didn't know what we were looking for. And after a lengthy conversation with Kenny Caraway, Danny in San Francisco comes back to me and says, "Hey, I think I found the perfect guy for you to do the show with. Do you know Kenny Caraway?" Absolutely. You're 100% right. I think this will work. But we didn't know what we were looking for. When people here prior said, "Hey, we have an opportunity to expand ESPN 1320 past D'Lo and KC. What would that look like for you?" Said, "I need Kyle Madsen." We didn't have to talk to 100 people. I knew at that moment what we needed, and it was Kyle. It was someone who wouldn't just he's a compliment to James, because James is so centrally focused on sports and reporting, and Kyle's a little bit more entertainment. He's a little bit more like us. He's a little bit more fun. I also knew he could do things with the end. I also knew he could do things with 98 Rock and in the 5 other stations here. I knew we didn't need another co-host. We needed Kyle. And I think about Doug and his intimate knowledge of this franchise in this city. And I listened to Scott Perry today say, yeah, I had, and I thought this was important, informal conversations with different people I know around the league. And he didn't say this part. I'm saying this part because this is what I believed from jump. I had those informal conversations, maybe got a gauge for how they feel, what they want, what they see this franchise as, what they see the city as. And none of them were what Sacramento needed. The Sacramento Kings needed Doug Christie. This group, me, this fan base in this city needed Doug Christie. I don't need to go do an expansive search to know what I need is right here. And I said a second ago, people talk about the process. Perhaps the greatest coach we've ever seen just retired or is moving to a different position. Excuse me. His health ailments are taking him to a full-time president position. He is no longer going to be on the sidelines. He's no longer going to be doing the traveling. And what did the greatest coach and perhaps the most stable organization we've ever known, what did they do? They hired the guy who filled in for him last year. Why? He knew the team. He knows the organization. He is what they need in this moment. No one is batting an eye at this. No one's talking about the process. No one is asking about a search because it's the Spurs. This was never about the process. Mm-hmm. This was never about doing the exact same thing the New Orleans Pelicans did. This was about the Sacramento Kings. And the Sacramento Kings are a perpetual punchline in the business of professional basketball. And that man, Scott Perry, spoke my love language today because he said, what's in the past is in the past. We don't need to talk about that anymore. We're all geared towards moving forward. Take the history of this organization out of your mind and let's all build something moving forward. That remark stuck with me.
That was good stuff. That was a correlation. And I will say this before Kyle responds. if it is about the Kings, it's completely fair. It's completely fair. They've earned that. Vivek Ranadive, the one mainstay through all of this, has earned the doubt that people have for his decision making, for his particular process. He's earned that by his results. So even if, we look at it as a situation like, no, this is what they needed to do in this moment, I'm not going to go crazy at anybody, and not saying you are or anybody else is, who says, no, I don't believe in you, Vivek. I don't believe in you. You have not shown that you can execute these type of decisions in a certain way with your type of method. So I need you to handle it differently, or how I think you should, or how the Knicks did, or the Spurs or the Pistons. I need you to handle it that way because you have shown me you're incapable of getting it right. I understand that thought process 100%. They've earned that with their results.
Yeah, the Spurs get a benefit of the doubt that the Kings don't. But on the other hand, that's just agreeing with Kenny there. But on the other hand, the way Scott Perry and Doug Christie have handled today specifically, it made me way more optimistic, because the reason I had trouble with the process leading up to this was that the Vivek era Kings get no benefit of the doubt from me personally, but it smacked of how do we put this together as quickly as humanly possible so we can maintain this quote unquote stability. Like, no, look, we're stable. Look, we got a plan. It's all good. That's how it looked to me. The way Scott Perry and Doug Christie went about this today made me feel a lot better, because they did not talk like a duo that is just trying to pick up where they left off last year. I think they understand that there's going to have to be potentially some regression before they move forward, as they kind of figure out what this team looks like. Because there's a new era this is a new, entirely different era than the last one. Like you just said, D'Lo, or the quote you relayed. So this is an entirely different era. It's going to look a lot different. Maybe the players that they have now can't execute what Doug wants to do, and so they got to do something different with their roster, and that's not going to happen this offseason. That may not happen next offseason. Like, there's going to be like a couple of years here, I think, anyway, and they look ready. And maybe it doesn't take that long, but I think there seems to be an organizational push where everybody's rowing the same direction on, we all want to get to this place. We want to get to the mountaintop. And simply just trying to throw together a team that might make the playoffs isn't the goal here. The goal is to not only make the playoffs, but use that as a stepping stone to win a championship. And that made me, I'm so much more optimistic about the Kings and their direction now than I was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, we're going to talk that talk right now, man. Eddie Gonzalez with us. This is the best 30 minutes in radio right here with our boy. Eddie, what's happening?
I appreciate that, man. Same old, man. What's up with you guys?
Hey, did Jalen hit the biggest shot in New York Knicks basketball history last night?
The biggest in my lifetime. I think the only thing close is the LJ shot, right? The bank.
That's the only other one.
But that was on the road in the series. Stave off a comeback. That was great. I mean, he won me over in this series. Not that I didn't like him before, but in multiple crunch times this series, he just took over and owned it. Now, unfortunately for Jalen and all the Knicks fans, they're probably about to run up to the worst matchup possible for that team, a team that's owned them all year long, and a dude that has owned them all year long. But we're singing praises right now. So I'm going to say, yeah, maybe the biggest shot in the history of my lifetime with the Knicks, which isn't that great a thing. This first round on the road against 6 seed, like, we can minimize it a little bit if we need to. If we want to hate.
It was a great shot. It was a great performance, though, from Jalen.